the planning commission special meeting for February 20th, 2025 public order.
Chair McNiff.
Here.
Commissioner Banfield. Commissioner Bright.
Here.
Commissioner Fitzgerald.
Here.
Commissioner Hodo.
Here.
Commissioner Severson. Commissioner Stewart.
Here.
Commissioner Zook.
Here.
And ex officio Underhill. You have a quorum.
Next, entertain a motion to approve the agenda with maybe a motion to amend the heading regular meetings special meeting.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor of both amending the agenda to indicate that this is a special meeting and approving the remainder of the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, the motion carries. Next, we would entertain public comment on agenda items. If anyone would like to, anyone in the public would like to come forward, state your name and your address and comment on the agenda, on any agenda items, you can do that now.
Hi. Just saw you all, some of you. Emily Emerson Rich, 616 Union Street, Marchall. I apologize, I did not attend last month's meeting. I was feeling under the weather, so I didn't get to see any presentation. So I'm speaking ahead of my full knowledge. But from what I've really looked at the agenda and the packet, I do have some concerns that I'd like to share and express with you as a member of the community here. First, I just want to say that I'm actually feeling really disappointed and let down. Last week, my wife and I attended the city's master plan for 5 years. And it was referenced about the survey that was taken from the residents. And our number one priority was preserving and maintaining our historical culture and vibe of the city. My words, not necessarily theirs, but so I'm really confused at how a 4-story concrete block chain hotel with lots of lighting and all of that comes with it. Speaking as a former hospitality manager and hotel employee, how that reflects our historical city and vibe, especially when it's right across from the little median where it says, our residents welcome you to historical, historic Marshall. I'm wondering what that is conveying to visitors for us. I'm also wondering if we actually did any research to the hotels that are already in the area and what their capacity is. 2.5 miles away, we have the Hampton Inn with 70 rooms. 2.5 miles away, we have the Holiday Inn Express with 66 rooms. Quality Inn, less than a mile away, has 50 rooms. Our Ann Arbor Inn, less than a mile away, has 48 rooms. If we want to go boutique, a little bit smaller, a little bit more specialized, we have our National House Inn, 0.8 miles away with just 15 rooms, and Villa on the Verona, 0.5 mile away with 4 single rooms and 1 suite. If we want to get a little less on the stars, we've got Howard's Motel about 1.5 miles away with 23 rooms, but we're not sure if that's going to stay or be demoed with the battery plant. And Marshall Motor Lodge, 4 miles away, according to Google, is already closed. In fact, they refer back to Schuler's new hotel, the Royal Hotel, which is 1 mile away, with only 5 rooms. And keeping all that in mind of what's in our city limits, we have Firekeepers Casino just 5 miles away with 416 rooms. So I'm kind of curious as to why we would want to compete with that. And it also brings to mind, why aren't we supporting our businesses that we have currently? I know it's important to bring in new businesses, but it's also important to foster and support the businesses that we currently have. I have a lot of other questions, but my whopping 3 minutes is over. So I thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments? Seeing no public who would like to comment on agenda items, we'll move on to old business. I see no old business. Next, reports and recommendation and new business. We have we're considering the site plan for 1154 West Michigan Ave site development plans. I believe we would need a motion to consider that and make a recommendation. Is that what you're asking us to do tonight?
Yes, we would be asking for, oh, thank you. Yes, we would be asking for, they're seeking site plan approval from the planning commission to proceed into the next phase, which would be preparing construction documentation.
Okay, so then we would need a motion to
We would need-
consider and
yes.
recommend the site plan for 1154 West Michigan Ave.
Right.
So I would entertain a motion to do that.
I'd make that motion.
Is there support?
You know, second.
Okay. Discussion. Would you like to report on the
So-
progress?
So from our last meeting, we've had a lot of communication back and forth with the engineers and, regarding this project. We came out of our last meeting with a series of questions. Gonna work off of my notes that were in the packet because I tried to address most of those in there. I think what we're trying to accomplish tonight is if there's anything that is, maybe a new concern that we've thought of since our last meeting that, I'm happy to kind of, read everything in the packet. But I think that what I would like to go over are maybe those contingency items that I think we don't have necessarily documented as part of the drawing set that we were considering. But yet, we've had some communication back and forth with the owner and the design team as part of this review process. And so some of those items that were of a concern related to the solar panels, the fire department, questioned kind of turning radius to get onto the north side of that building. And I would recommend that we require a, more thorough coordination with the fire department so that we know exactly what fire truck, needs, because it's not just a simple, draw a radius on a plan. They've got a boom associated with the truck. And so having that final angle set with the solar panel needs to all be kind of coordinated. That seems like more of a construction documentation coordination item. We've discussed that if necessary, that little stretch of solar panels would be removed from the project to accommodate the fire department needs. The fire department needs would kind of trump the solar panels is what our requirement would be. The other item that was associated with the solar panels related to and this was in the last sheet in the packet. Along the, what would that be? The east side of the property, there is residential, those apartments, McClellan Apartments. There's a 50-foot setback requirement. And so the red panels would be removed from the scope because they're within that 50-foot setback. That was something that we discussed at the last meeting and we followed up with that. And so this is that description of what the effect of that was. And then a slight coordination between that final location of the panel. We recommend that we allow the panel to actually extend to the face of the curb that's associated with the associated parking that's underneath those panels, so that the drip edge of the, hits the curb and the grass and not the parking area for those panels. So that's a little bit of an allowance, kind of push it into that area. the supports for the panels would still be outside of our setback requirements. And I believe solar mounts didn't have a problem with kind of coordinating, make sure that was outside of our area. So those are the kind of two solar items that I would coordinate with. Yes, Ian.
For the first part with the fire department, is that only for the, I'll call them the island units that would be considered to be removed? Are we talking this outright removal of all solar panels?
No, I'm going to reference the same drawing that was in the packet. If north is up on this plan, it would only, we believe it would only affect this grouping of solar panels that's closest to the north end of the building. Because the fire department is not really concerned about getting in between the other areas out in the parking lot area. They're only concerned about having access to the north end of this building. They have no problems accessing, from either side and the south end of the building. It's just this one that they wanted to follow up with some more careful coordination.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. Moving on to some landscape items that were brought up. We had a very diligent review. Tim Bamfield did a great job and provided some comments in the interim here. And I don't think I need to kind of highlight all of those items. However, those have been communicated back and we don't foresee any issues. They're going to follow back up post approval, but give us a revised sealed plan that would align with what our expectations were. So these would.
So we're gonna need a contingency on that as well.
Yes. And so I would expect in my write-up, I know that the items that are below, where I say additional items that were a concern and have been confirmed with the design team per AR engineering, that batch of bullet points underneath there, I think as part of the approval should be pulled into the contingency list. I think, we might be able to refine it a little bit. But we want to make sure that all of those are documented in the final.
And those are a lot of contingencies. I would have really preferred to have seen those incorporated in the stamped plans. I don't know how come on up and.
Good evening, Jason Raleigh with AR Engineering. I can speak to a few items as we work through with Marcia, and obviously, I don't remember the gentleman's name that wasn't able to be.
Mr. Banfield?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he provided some comments just prior to the meeting that would have been part of the meeting. They weren't provided.
For last week or for?
Just last week. So I think Monday, I think we had a call and talk through those items. And we didn't have an opportunity to get back with our landscape architect to revise, but I think the items that were brought up were the size of the shrub.
Right.
And that's just a labeling swap. So the shrub actually meets the requirement. It's just the way it was labeled. So it's just modifying that label. And then I think adjacent to the residential area was a swap to prefer evergreen for screening purposes versus deciduous.
Correct.
Aside from that, there's some preferential comments.
Again, the planning numbers aren't required.
Yeah, the planning numbers and then specifics with one of the bed details. That's a preference requirement, which we're happy to look at and modify.
Okay.
So I think that the two main items in there
Were the deciduous trees being replaced with the evergreens and the 2.5 feet bushes.
Yeah, and
close to-
clarifying that.
Inch caliper instead of the 2-inch to meet our zoning requirement.
I thought there was a height issue too
And
that we discussed.
So the bushes, instead of the pot being
Defining the size instead of the pot defining the size, it
The
has to
height
be
of the
defined
bush.
by the fill, like the full.
Am I missing that on here? Yeah.
So
There's,
here's your caliber.
yep, there's the caliper, and I thought that there was a height issue too.
It's the final planting numbers. Here, this one. Require
Okay.
shrub sizes at the time of planting instead of the pot size.
Gotcha. Okay. So those are the three big issues. The other ones were more just kind of wish list items.
Asks.
They're going to
Okay.
accommodate.
We'll provide a quantity takeoff for
Okay.
those.
So all the landscaping items in the bulleted list are going to need to be
Yes,
contingent items.
yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Except for maybe the number of the plantings in the table. But-
right.
But Mr. Banfield would really like to have that.
Yeah, sure. And the numbers are on the plans. They're just specified in the clumps. They're just
Yeah.
not in the table. So
It's just not totaled.
it's not totaled in the
Yeah.
table. It's quantified out from a bid standpoint for a contractor to bid on. But yeah, we can add to the table.
That satisfies me. Anybody have any questions about, yeah?
Jason, can you answer questions about the solar panels themselves, or is that somebody else?
Yeah, I have Joey here with the solar team. So I mean,
You'd
between
mind?
him and I, we can definitely answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Come on. These are pretty general questions, but I'm basically just wondering about like the resiliency of the panels. Are they tested for like hail and a tornado and like hard impact on like a direct hit on the top of it?
Yeah,
Then-
absolutely. There's hail testing that they do in New Mexico, so.
Okay, so in the inside of the panels, is there anything that can like leach out of there? Like if that glass breaks, are there any hazardous materials inside of that?
Typically, when a break does happen, which is usually in the install process, it doesn't really happen when it's already up there. Because it would have to be like a bowling ball dropped on it from quite high to actually break it. But it's just like a car window, you know, when you break it and it cracks, it kind of has it just cracks throughout the panel rather than just shattering and falling on the ground.
And there's no hazardous materials that come out of that?
I can't answer that.
Okay. I just wondered how resilient they were and if there was anything in there.
Yeah, I mean, they're tested and I'm sure whatever manufacturer we're going with, we can provide test results of what they've gone through for hail testing and whatnot.
Okay. All right.
There were questions at the last meeting about the elevations on the solar panels and not being marked. Have we resolved that?
So the example, and maybe I should let you answer.
What were the questions?
There were some questions about what the elevations would be on the solar panels, because I think there was a concern about clearance for trucks.
Yeah, so we build everything to a 14 height minimum clear height across the board, and people argue against it. And we, push back with like anything that travels down the road, down any road around here has to be under that clear height anyways. So, they might say a semi truck never turns around in there, but what happens at 2 a.m. when nobody's looking? Also for fire trucks, they can get in there as well because they also travel down the road, so.
And I know at the last plans that we had didn't show the height. Have we fixed that?
Yeah, I think we provided supplemental stuff for a section view. I don't believe I ever that. It was I think we provided the couple of sheets in the section view.
Yeah, so I know that these examples are not site specific, but I think that their base height at the low end is consistent.
Okay.
So their dimension is to the top edge of that front leading edge, but it sounds like it's 14 feet to the low end.
I know we talked about whether we were measuring from the peak or the low point.
So if we're looking at this, our zoning ordinance, the measurement of that height, you really take the high end and the low end and you take that average and that's your height of your building. We are not close to you know, even if these things are 22 feet tall, but still an average between the two, which is less than the 20 feet or whatever that is our, no, I think it's 25 feet. Thank you.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
25 feet as our maximum height requirement.
And I think we're 14 and a half up to maybe just over 20
Yeah,
Okay.
is.
it's typically what, yep, 7-degree tilt, starting at 14, usually puts you around 20 to 20.
Okay. Is that it?
That is a side.
What was that one? Oh, that was in the supplemental, I think. Yeah, gotcha. Any other questions on the solar panels? No, I know that somebody had asked at the last meeting about snow removal, and it looks like that got cleared up in the new report as well. I don't know if you want to share that with us.
Yeah, so I mean, everything on the edges is gonna be tilted towards grass or outer banks, so the snow one is gonna shed into the grass area. And two, all the posts are also on the back edges, so there won't be any obstructions for plow trucks or anything going through, and it'll still act and function as a normal park.
And I can speak to the snow management on the site. So we do have a dedicated area kind of in the back that we've recessed shrubs, and we're still curbing it, but we'll have a mountable curb to be able to push snow. And obviously we'll, the owner will work with a local plow company to maintain and manage that. And obviously if we need to move it in a certain way, then we'll have to work with them to maintain it.
Okay. Great. Lighting was an issue at the last meeting, and it looks like you're working on the lighting for those areas where you can't have the solar panels.
Yeah, so we did provide a photometric plan, but towards the end, working with Marcia and the city attorney to navigate through some of those setbacks that go between the solar section and the accessory building section, and holding the most restrictive for the site. We've got to work through what we do from a lighting standpoint for those areas, because otherwise the solar has undermounted lights to light up those spaces. And then in the areas that we don't have solar panels, kind of up near the front, we do have all those noted as far as photometric throw and where those will be located. So we do have to go back where the solar panels are being eliminated and provide a minor update on how we maintain and manage that. Obviously, we got to meet the ordinance for minimizing and maintaining the downward directing lighting and the minimal throw.
So are we gonna need a contingent plan on that?
I think that you could make that a staff review.
Okay.
Their approach would be the same, similar to the front. With we want to have similar type lighting across the property.
Just confirm that it will be a consistent look and feel throughout output. Great.
Yeah, and I think that section is in that list, Lisa, under the lighting bullet points. That we will work with the architectural team to provide necessary lighting in the area along the east parking lot.
Right, and utilities, we were talking a little bit earlier about the final storm review,
Yes.
where that is.
So I think one of the questions that came up at the last time was to confirm how the water was, if the water from the south end of the lot was making its way all the way to those back retention area, underground retention areas. And the ball of the piping from the front to the back it gets there for getting to that retention area. Spicer is our consultant for reviewing stormwater. I don't have their final review, but they have been in communication immensely with
Yeah.
Andrew.
Yeah, I can speak on that real quick.
Okay.
You know, from the stormwater management side, we did obviously look at what MDOT will allow. MDOT's really restrictive on what they allow and what they, you know, currently the site all surface drains pretty much. Part of the front end surface drains to the right of way. And kind of from the building back around the corner and all the way to the back, that surface drains kind of back to the northwest corner where there's an existing kind of structure there. So, you know, in working through with Marguerite and Spicer Group on how we maintain and design that system, we are piping everything around from the front to the back. It is going to be a little bit deeper. So that system back there is going to act as forced storage. And then as that system fills up, you know, in bigger rain events, it will start to slow release where it currently straight discharges right now. So it's going to be a lot less. We look at it, the county manual looks at it from a cubic foot per second, a flow rate. And so we're well under what that requirement is. And that's what we're navigating through with Spicer Group. They're hoping to finish their review next week. So we have had a conference call with Marguerite and Spicer Group to talk through the details of that, and they're working on finalizing their aspect of it.
So that would also be contingent on a final review and approval from Spicer Group and from the
And so, yes, and in the recommendation list, the first item is a final approval of stormwater management.
And I can speak to a few of these contingent items on these bigger projects that have a lot of moving parts. This is what we normally see. You know, on a real small, straightforward project, you're able to get all those ducks in a row. This has a lot of moving parts with, you know, from a utilities side of things to serve the building, and there's a lot more storm runoff that you got to take into account and how to pipe it. And with the solar aspect of the project, what we normally see is we'll get in front of the planning commission, make sure there isn't any loose ends from a zoning ordinance standpoint, setbacks, buildings, all those items. And then we'll work through the final intricate details of the design, because we don't want to have to go back and spend a huge amount of money redesigning the whole thing because we can't, the building has to grow up, get smaller or shift or something like that.
No, I understand that. Any questions on? No, go ahead, Marcia.
No, it's okay. Go ahead, keep going.
I was just asking if anybody else had any questions on the stormwater issues.
I mean, for me, it's just making sure Marguerite feels good with this plan. So, no, it's good. Good.
That's the most important
Yeah.
thing.
I know there've been some comments about maintenance too, and ongoing maintenance, accessibility, and from looking at the drawings, it looks like it's very clear that the accessibility is there if issues arise. So that helps a lot.
Yeah.
And we're working through with Marguerite on what that looks like from an agreement standpoint, and which isn't necessarily, it's not necessarily the norm, but it isn't unusual.
And it's going to be going through an area that won't have solar panels over it, so that'll make it more accessible.
Yep. And, you know, the way we design these obviously is, you know, there's, everything will route through what's called an isolator row. And so there is some additional that does collect if there's sediment buildup that you can get in and access to clean out. So we've worked through these on a lot of, say, downtown type setting sites that don't have room for a big above ground basin. And we do have good soils out here. We did soil and geotech work to verify that. So everything's lending to it being the appropriate design.
Of course, we have no control over MDOT whatsoever, but it sounds like you have had some communication with them about minor things.
Yeah, I can speak to the MDOT side. So we have, initially we did submit some conceptual items to them. They came back and said they need a lot more information. So we did do a traffic impact assessment. We navigated through that with the traffic engineer and provided that they gave us kind of some final direction. We made an initial submittal probably 45 days ago. They came back with some minor comments. Those are just being reviewed right now.
Okay.
So they wanted, and one of Marcia, I think, in reviewing with fire was the configuration and size of the drive. And that actually came back from MDOT as they're requiring certain radius points, which increased the size of the drive a little bit. So their requirement kind of accommodated what questions the fire had.
Okay. Sounds good. Anybody? Yes.
thinking through things that I had reviewed and if I had missed anything. This is probably more for Marcia, but from a fire hydrant perspective, seeing one on the plan and then a direct connection to the building, for a lot of this size and a building of this size, one is sufficient. That's been reviewed.
So actually, we are able to eliminate the fire hydrant that's in the middle of the property. That was,
Okay. There's one.
and that's something that's probably going to come off of the drawings.
I think the direction, the confirmation came back, I think 2 days ago.
Yes.
So we're working with Aaron and, is the fire chief or fire marshal?
Yeah, Mike Goebel is the reviewer. And actually, there's a couple people from the fire department that review it, but they went through and, so one thing I learned is, when there is, what do they call it? A yard hydrant when it's on private property. And our fire department doesn't really like using those. And so they prefer if they can make the fire hydrants that are in the right of way, if they can make them work, if they, with their lengths of hoses and all, whatever they need. That's their preference. And our water department would prefer also not to have,
The maintenance side of it.
yard hydrants that they have to maintain. And so there was a lot of back and forth between those two entities trying to sort out if they could make it work without them. And yeah, my apologies. I think that was since I issued the packets.
I think it was 2 days ago. is when They got that.
I tried to copy people as I discovered things, but yes, so that would be another thing that can come off of the drawings. But again, I don't feel like that, that's a kind of coordination item that works out great.
It really lends, I mean, the hydrant itself isn't needed from a site standpoint, a site development standpoint. It comes down to building fire. And
Yeah.
so normally we end up coming through that when they get more into the building review and, if there's FTC connection, what that looks like, what the fittings are, some of those details. So there will be, yes. It is shown, I think, on the southeast or south building corner. I think I could double check. See the note
And the
is.
fire hydrant, so that's subject to both the fire department approval and the water department approval. Is that right?
Yes. That is really more of a fire,
It's no I on
that's
C3.
fire issue.
We can add that final coordination between the fire department truck requirements and hydrant.
Yes, we could.
Truck requirements, panel locations and fire hydrant location.
It's a southeast wall.
Yeah, we could put it there. You might want to make that a separate item because the coordination is really between the panels and the fire truck. And then like the fire hydrant is kind of a separate fire department issue.
And
Sorry, we're getting into semantics here.
no, don't worry. And I spoke with Marcia about this a little earlier, with those panels and the potential with the fire truck movements. Obviously, from my perspective, I'd rather go that direction and try to go the other direction with adding panels that you guys aren't seeing. So, I mean, it really comes down to, similar to the hydrant side, what the fire department is saying they need and that they must have in order to function, should there be an issue. So, I think based on the size, the location, and the coverage requirements set forth in the solar section of the ordinance, we meet
Right.
the requirements, just fine. So if we were to have to eliminate them, then we're just moving further into meeting it, so.
I do have one other item. As far as the utilities coordination is concerned, I think the electrical utility coordination should also be on the list. That the city would require, just like we're requiring them to come back with a revised site plan for us to review prior to moving into construction documentation or submitting for building permits. We would request that they would come to us and discuss the electrical utility coordination, because just to confirm that we don't have any long lead time items that the city would need to kind of, purchase early in the process. We just want to make sure that we're kind of hitting any construction timeline that they're looking at. And that's not really you know, we don't need to, you know, worry about the electrical stuff right now at this point. Not everything's been designed on the building to kind of refine those numbers. But we just want to make sure that we have that communication early in the process.
Understood. Yeah, we're working closely with Kevin from the city, and I've got, you know, Chris from the team, as well as we're working with Melissa from the architect side. Their mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers are working through panel sizing and everything like that. So we've got to get some more information out of them to feed to Kevin, so we can make sure that whatever transformer that the city needs to set is available or is being ordered. And, you know, from a construction standpoint, I think we do have time, obviously, because we won't need electric day one. So I don't see any issue with that. And I did follow up with Kevin this morning and exchange emails on a few items. So
So what we're asking for is that there be electric utility coordination that will be approved by the city.
Yeah, we just want them to, I would call it like a desktop review with us. They're already kind of currently doing it on the wastewater side and on the water utility side. So I think, you know, that's a little more important to have done during this prior to planning commission approval. Get far enough as far as those are concerned, but from an electrical perspective, we just want to make sure that there's communication prior to them getting construction documents completed.
So do you want final approval of the electrical utility coordination?
No, I'm just asking for a desktop review.
Okay,
So we just want to be in the loop on the design.
okay.
I think that's awesome looking out, and that the city is looking at it from that perspective is great. So thank you.
Anybody else over there want to tell us anything?
My review of the photometrics, there were really no foot candles noted along the east side of the building where the exits are. West side.
West side.
West side. So I didn't know, were those photometrics run only for really the parking lot lights and there is lighting on that west side? Or just to make sure that there's a safe exit?
I think there's Chris, maybe you know, I think there's emergency lighting. And so at night, there'd be an emergency, which would be a minimal emergency light for an emergency egress. I don't know on the back where we've got kind of where the pool is, as you head north, there's sidewalk access for emergency. I don't know if you would normally see small wall packs or not.
There should be.
Okay. Something just for, even if it is emergency purposes only, the fact it's a dark alleyway, keeping safety in mind, just, you know, I don't want to cast any unnecessary lights into the sky we don't need, but I also want people feeling safe, even if they are walking through that space. So if that could be noted, that'd be great.
But one of those fine lines is we don't want light pollution and yet we also want safety.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I can look at that to make sure that we have the emergency safety lighting, not necessarily you know, what you would see to pronounce where the doors are, where the, you know, entryways are, but from a safety security standpoint.
Anything else? Okay. Seeing none, I would then entertain.
There's one more thing. I think Ian had,
So yeah, one more, and I don't know what's best practice, what's required, so I want to be very mindful of that. But there is no sidewalk connecting the sidewalk along the street to the building. So if I'm a guest at the hotel and I want to walk to
Applebee's or
Applebee's, although that's
I
going to
don't
be very
know.
difficult, maybe we should.
McDonald's.
Ice cream stand. I have to walk basically into the driveway and then onto the sidewalk. So I didn't know if there's a way to have a safer passage, that would be great. Understanding that, you know, there may be kids wanting to go get some ice cream after their football, soccer, whatever game.
I think, and I think that there is definitely a viable access, maybe it's staying out of the parking lot.
Yeah,
With the drive situation and maybe coming down and connecting kind of along that west line and the west parking limits. I think I don't see any issue with adding that from a walkability standpoint or, going to area businesses.
That's great. Thank you.
Did you make the motion to consider? Yes, so we might need a friendly amendment to include the landscaping items in order to provide a plan that shows the evergreen trees in lieu of the deciduous trees, to revise the caliper of the trees from 2 feet to 2.5 feet, and to review and comply with the zoning ordinances as it relates to the shrub sizes at times of planting. And then also to work with the architectural team to provide necessary lighting in the area along the east parking lot where the solar panel system was removed adjacent to the apartment building. And that the lighting at that location will comply with the requirements as laid out in the zoning ordinance. And there would be final coordination and final approval of the water and wastewater utility connection plans with the city and the Spicer Group. That's for the final storm review as well as the sanitary service final connection details. There'd be final coordination between the fire department with the truck regard to the truck requirements and the panel locations, and also final approval with the fire department regarding the fire hydrant location. There would also be a desktop review with the city with regard to the electrical utility coordination. And then this would be subject to MDOT approval of the revisions to the access drive. And finally, we would need confirmation of the final column locations be required to stay beyond the setback and the solar panels to extend into the setback and not beyond the associated curb. So those revised drawings would be submitted to staff and a review shall confirm the resolution of the contingency items. That's the friendly amendment. Yes. If that's okay with you. We would add all of that. And whoever seconded that would. All right, all those in favor of approving the site plan with the contingency
That you spoke.
revisions that we stated, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Good luck with your project.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you.
All right, we promised we weren't really going to do a long meeting, although, sorry. Public comment on any non-agenda items. So any public comment on items that aren't related to this particular site plan? Okay, seeing none, board reports.
I have none at this time. I do have one thing, actually. I'm sorry. The City Council and Planning Commission, we are looking to do a joint meeting sometime in the next couple of months. And so I would ask that the Planning Commission please get back to me if you can tonight. Look at your schedules and let me know in the next 2 months what your availability
Are
is.
there any proposed dates?
I think it's on us to propose the dates.
Okay.
The Mondays before the city council meetings are when they're looking to do it. No, just Mondays,
Just ask.
any Monday that there is a city council meeting, which I can go.
So it would be a Monday? Okay, okay.
The joint.
Oh, yeah.
The planning.
Yes, sorry, that's the city, that's just the city council is looking for a meeting. So we can, please get back to me on that.
Okay.
That's my only item.
All of us, you need there?
Yes, at least let me know if you, I mean, if Mondays don't work for you, then let me know that. Too. Yeah.
Is this about that vacation issue?
No, this is, we still have not resolved the sign ordinance.
Okay.
Planning commission sent it to city council
Gotcha.
and they had some issues.
You conceded a lot.
I thought I was a really team player.
I thought you were too. You were, you were 100%. It's, actually, we all came to an agreement. It must be council's problem.
Okay, all right, guys. I think that's about. So I think that's my only item.
Quick for,
Report? No, report?
No.
MACC meeting next Wednesday, Public Services Building. I believe it's at 6:30. What time was it last
I
time?
think it is, I think it's 6:30.
6:30?
I think you're right.
Show up at 6, you'll be early. Tree planting confirmed for April 26th, that's Saturday. So excited to be working with the city, MACC and others to enhance our tree canopy. And there will be a second planting in the fall, as well as Canoe the Kazoo and Crazy for the Kazoo happening this year. So the MACC is back.
All right.
Allow me appropriate time to bring up tree stump removal?
Is it a report?
Oh, no.
No,
It's my,
Yes, they have that plan. There's just,
okay,
the problem is all the big ones are dying. So there's lots of stumps up.
Yeah.
I know, I have two in my curb one. And
I've been watching one of my trees die for 9 years.
my other half is. So I'm gonna send her to you. Hey, call Ian or call you.
Jim, any reports?
From the city perspective, it costs us a sign to put up there. But
All right, I'm just trying to make sure I know where you're talking.
so if you access you're already coming up the hill,
Yeah,
coming
that's
out the athletic fields.
I-
But we've had several accidents where folks are trying to cut across the 4 lanes.
I'm gonna tell you that's already on our radar.
Okay. That would be from a safety standpoint.
Yes,
to put us on the right hand.
I think
Take a right hand turn.
Yep. I think that was one of the items. So Chief Lankard from the police department presented to city council. 2 or 3 months ago, maybe. They did an assessment of intersections in town, based on incidents, based on what their perspective of, hazard was, right? And so I know there was a couple of intersections where they were uncontrolled at this point, maybe it was a T intersection and there was nothing that gave direction. And I know that they'd also specifically talked about that turn coming out of the ball field area as trying to make that a right turn only. So I know the sign's not up. Maybe they're waiting for spring to kind of do a batch of these, but I know that is on their radar.
Good luck with it. So I just want to address the public real quick. We appreciate you coming and making comments and it's great to have public involvement and thank you. I want to, just so that you understand.
Space that I was supposed to talk just then, so I.
Well, what I wanted to say, I don't know that it's a report, is I want people to understand the scope of our work here is that when we're looking at a site plan, what we have to determine is that the use is compliant with the zoning district it's in, and that all of the building, the code regulations, the setbacks, the landscaping, all of that is in accordance with our ordinance. We don't have any control over what's being built other than to make sure it conforms to the ordinance. So while I absolutely understand your concerns and we want everybody in the public to continue giving us input, we only have the authority to make sure that projects conform. We can't decide in favor of or against a project other than on the basis of, is it something that's allowed in the district? And does it conform to all of our building ordinances and requirements? So while your concerns are absolutely welcome, that's our scope. And we're not allowed to exceed it. So if that maybe helps a little bit for you to understand what we're able to do. And again, keep coming. We absolutely welcome it.
Who owns these solar panels? The city or?
That would be the project owner.
So the city has nothing to do with the panels at all. So if they're damaged, the owner would have to recycle them, which is hard to do nowadays. You can't.
That would be up to the owner. Yeah.
There are documentation about hailstones destroying solar panels, and tornadoes can destroy solar panels. I mean, that gentleman kind of gave a false impression that they're invincible. They're not.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, but yeah, no, that would be completely up to the property owner.
City would have nothing to do with replacement or trying to recycle or dispose of them if they needed to.
No, sir.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, no, sir.
Stand drawing completely, it's very tiny print, but is that like,
Well-
are they parking lot structures that's the solar panel like what they have at MSU campus? Okay, that's. Thanks.
I'm really sorry, but I'm gonna,
Yeah,
I'm gonna recommend maybe we wrap up the official portion of this meeting and we are, we can gladly entertain any communications after this, but
Absolutely.
just to make sure that we're official.
Well, I would absolutely consider adjourning this meeting. All those in favor? I think we're closed now with the meeting, but if you would like to stay and discuss things, we can do that. We are adjourned.